Hello and welcome to the show. I am Big Joe, your storyteller. Today we're going to tell 4 big stories. I have a story about a spider, I have a story about a giant, I have a story about a king, and I have a story about a sheep. So let's get going. Our very first story is a story from Africa. It's a story about Anansi the Spider. Now, if you ever heard a story about Anansi is a trickster. He loves to play tricks. He plays all kinds of very sneaky tricks. And this is a story called Anansi the Spider and the Strange Green Rock. Once upon a time, Anansi the Spider was going out for a walk in the middle of the jungle, and he came across something he had never seen before. It was a green rock. The rock was big and green and shiny and weird. He looked at that rock, and he said, "My, what a strange green rock." When he said those words, he fell into a deep, dark sleep. He slept and he slept for a whole hour. And when he woke up, he was a little bit confused. He said, "Hey, what just happened?" So I remember walking through the jungle. I came across this rock. I said, "What a strange green rock." When he said those words again, he fell into a deep, dark sleep. And he woke up an hour later and he said, "Aha, I get it. This must be a magic rock. And anytime you say the words, what a you fall into a deep, dark sleep. So you know what? I'm going to use this rock and play some tricks on the animals." And so Anansi ran to the jungle. He ran and ran and ran and ran and ran until he came across a very good smell. Ooh. And he looked into Lion's window. And Lion was sitting there with a great big pizza. Now, Anansi loved pizza. He wanted to get that pizza. So he went over to Lion. He said, "Oh, Lion, I saw something very strange in the jungle today." And Lion said, "Very strange? You saw something very strange?" He said, "Yes, would you like to go and see it?" Lion said, "Yeah, I like very strange things." He said, "Well then, let's go." And he took Lion to the middle of the jungle where the rock was. And he got there. He said, "Oh, Lion, look, there it is." And Lion said, "Wow, what a strange green rock." And when he said those words, he fell into a deep, dark sleep. And while he was sleeping, Anansi ran and ran to Lion's house. He stole Lion's pizza and brought it to his house. And when Lion woke up an hour later, he was a little bit confused. When he got to his house and saw that his pizza was gone, Lion was sad. But Anansi was very happy because the trick worked well. And so he ran and ran to the jungle until he came across an even better smell. And he looked into the window of Hippo, and Hippo was sitting there with a great big plate of chicken nuggets. And he really wanted those chicken nuggets. So he went over to Hippo and he said, "Oh, Hippo, I saw something very strange in the jungle today." And Hippo said, "Very strange? You saw something very strange?" He said, "Yes, would you like to go and see it?" Hippo said, "Yeah, I like very strange things." He said, "Well then, let's go." He took Hippo to the middle of the jungle where the rock was. And he got there. He said, "Oh, Hippo, look, there it is." And Hippo said, "Wow, what a strange green rock." And when he said those words, he fell into a deep, dark sleep. While he was sleeping, Anansi ran and ran to Hippo's house. He stole Hippo's chicken nuggets and brought it to his house. Well, when Hippo woke up an hour later, he was a little bit confused. When he got to his house and saw that his chicken nuggets are gone, Hippo was sad. But Anansi was very happy because the trick worked well. And so he ran and ran to the jungle to play it again. He ran and ran until he came across a really good smell. And he looked into Elephant's window, and Elephant was sitting there with a great big chocolate cake. And he went over to Elephant and he said, "Oh, Elephant, I saw something very strange in the jungle today." Elephant said, "Very strange? You saw something very strange?" He said, "Yes, would you like to go and see it?" Elephant said, "Yeah, I like very strange things." He said, "Well then, let's go." He took Elephant to the middle of the jungle where the rock was. And he got there. He said, "Oh, Elephant, look, there it is." And Elephant said, "Wow, what a strange green rock." And when he said those words, he fell into a deep, dark sleep. And while he was sleeping, Anansi ran and ran to the jungle until he got to Elephant's house, and he stole Elephant's chocolate cake and brought it to his house. When Elephant woke up an hour later, he was a little bit confused. When he got to his house and saw that his chocolate cake was gone, Elephant was sad. But Anansi was very happy because the trick worked again, and he kept on playing it. He played it on just about everybody. He played it on rhino, he played it on tiger, he played it on giraffe, he played it on just about everybody. But there was somebody he didn't play it on, and that was Monkey. Here's my monkey. Hey friends, how you doing? And Monkey was up in his tree, and Monkey saw what Anansi was doing with that rock, and he said, hey, you know what? Stealing is not okay. Somebody has to teach that little spider a lesson. Mm-hmm. And so Monkey climbed his tree and grabbed a great big bushel of bananas and brought them down. And he started to eat the bananas. And as he did, Anansi smelled those delicious bananas and came on over. And he said, oh, Monkey, I saw something very strange in the jungle today. And Monkey said, very strange? You saw something very strange? He said, yes, would like to go and see it. And Monkey said, yeah, I like very strange things. He said, well then, let's go. He took Monkey to the middle of the jungle where the rock was, and he got there. He said, oh, Monkey, look, there it is. The monkey said, I don't see anything. He said, look, right there. So Auntie, there's nothing there. He said, yes, look, right there. Up there? No, not up there. Look, right over there. Back there? No, not back there. Look, right over there. Down there? Not down there. Look, right over there. Up there? No, not over there. Right over there. Down there? Not down there. Look, right over there. He said, Anansi, there's nothing there. He said, yes, look, right there. He said, Anansi, there's nothing there. He said, yes, there is. Look, it's a strange green rock. Uh-oh. When Anansi said those words, he fell into a deep, dark sleep. And while he was sleeping, Monkey ran to the animals' houses, told them what Anansi was doing with that rock, and they went to his house to take their food back. Oh, Anansi woke up an hour later. He was a little bit confused. And he got to his house, and there were all the animals waiting for him, and boy, were they mad. And Anansi ran. He ran and found a place to hide. And from that day on, he never stole from anyone ever again. And he never went near the strange green rock. And that is the end. All right, on to our next story, story number 2. Story number 2 is going to be a story about a giant. This is a story from England, and I'm going to tell it to you. It's a story about a giant and about a town with a bell, and you'll see what happens in the story right about now. It's called The Whistling Giant. Now, once upon a time, there was a town filled with mostly farm people and townspeople, and they were all out there having a good old time, and they had a nice little town. In the middle of that nice little town, there was a great big tower. And in that great big tower, there was a great big bell. Now, every night, the people go to sleep, and every morning, they would ring the bell, bang, 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 wake everybody up. Every night, they go to sleep, and every morning, the bell would ring, bang, 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 they'd all wake up. Well, one morning, they woke up, they didn't hear a bell. And they said, that's strange, where's the bell? Well, they're out to the middle of town to see. When they got there was the man that rang the bell. His name was Gus. And Gus was standing there looking like this. They said, Gus, what happened to the bell? He said, I don't know. I pulled the rope and nothing happened. Well, they climbed up the bell tower to see. When they got up there, that's when they saw it. The bell was gone. They said, somebody stole our bell. Who could have taken our bell? That bell was huge. That bell was this big and this tall. Who could have taken a bell that big? Well, nobody could figure it out. They searched and they searched, but nobody could figure it out at all. So they called in a detective. And the detective said, don't worry, I will find who took the bell. He looked around town for clues. Let me see here. Clue. No clue at all. Well, he searched around for clues, couldn't find anything, but finally he found something. There at the edge of town, he found a footprint that was this big and this deep. And he said, aha, that is a very big footprint. And whoever made the big footprint took the very big bell. And I know who made the footprint. This footprint was made by a frog. No, not a frog. No. Wait, I got it. This footprint was made by a cow. No, not that either. Wait, I got it. This footprint was made by an elephant wearing underwear. No. They couldn't figure it out. He was trying to figure it out when all of a sudden, the ground shook. And there, standing in the middle of the forest, was a giant. A giant that was a man as tall as a tree. And he had a big long beard, a big mean face, and great big muscles. And he had the bell under his arm, and he said, hey, this bell sounds pretty good to me. I think I'm going to keep it. Yeah, this bell is my bell now. You can't have it. Well, the people wanted the bell. That was their bell, so they ran to the giant to try to get it back. But when they did, the giant just stomped his great big foot Boom, boom, boom. And everybody jumped. Woohoo! Well, the giant went into the middle of the forest. And when he did, the people took a rope and they put a rope right across the forest. And they said, don't anybody go past that rope, because past that rope is a giant, and that giant will eat you up. Well, nobody went past the rope because they were very afraid of that giant. But there was a boy in that town. His name was Joe. And he was a farm boy, hence the hat. And he was walking along with his pet cow, Bessie. Hello. Hello, everybody. How's you doing? Hello. How you doing? How you doing? Mwah! Stop it. Don't kiss the camera. Don't kiss me. Ew. Don't kiss me again. Ew. He was kissed by a cow. Stop it. Well, he was walking along with his pet cow, Bessie, and he got up to the rope. When he got there, he said to his cow, psst, hey, Bessie, you want to go see the giant? Bessie said, no, giants are big. I don't want to go see the giant. Let's go. No. What are you, crazy? The giant. Let's go. No way. Come on. No way. Come on. So they snuck on the rope to go see the giant. And they tiptoed on over to where the giant was. And they got there. There sat the giant. And the giant was sitting next to the bell. And the giant was doing something very strange with his lips. The giant was doing this. The giant said, oh, fiddlesticks, I can't whistle. Now, when he said he couldn't whistle, that gave Joe a great idea. He took his cow by the leash and walked on over to where that giant was. When he got there, the giant looked down at him. The giant said, hey, you, what are you doing here? I'm a giant, and I can crush you with my fingers if I wanted to. And Joe said, yeah, I bet you could, Mr. Giant, but you know what? I bet you there's something you can't do. And the giant said, what? I can do everything. I'm a giant. I said, all right, I'll make a deal with you. I'll give you 4 things to do. If you can do them all, then you win. And if you can't do them all, then I win. And the giant said, what do you win? He said, well, if you can't do all 4 things, you have to bring the bell back to town, and you have to leave town and never come back. And the giant said, all right, sounds good. He said, what happens if I win and I can do all 4 things, which I know I can? He said, well, then, Mr. Giant, you get to eat my cow. Yeah, eat my what? In case you don't notice, I'm the cow. Shh, shh, shh. Don't let him eat me. Don't let him eat me. Don't let him eat me. Ah!
No. Let go of my nose, please. Okay, please let go of my nose. I have to tell all the nice friends the story, all right? Get off of my nose.
Ow. You have boogers in your nose. Stop that. Big boogers. Please stop. That's rude. Boogers, stop it. Over there. Well, the giant licked his lips and said, I haven't eaten a cow in a long, long time. He said, all righty, you got yourself a deal. He said, what's thing number 1? And Joe said, well, Mr. Giant, you see that rock way over there? Bet you can't lift it. There's a big rock over there as big as somebody's house. The giant went on over to it, took his great big muscles, grabbed hold of that rock, lifted it up, and put it back down. So that was easy. He said, what's thing number 2? And Joe said, well, Mr. Giant, you see that cloud way up there? I bet you can't touch it. There's a white puffy cloud floating over the town. The giant went on over to it, bent his knees really low, jumped up really high, and he went, floop, hit the cloud, and the cloud drifted away. The giant came down. He smiled a really big smile. He said, oh, boy, only 2 more things, and then I'm having cow sandwiches. Ha! Hi, babe! Come out. Nope, come out. No, get out here. No way. Get out here. Look, I have a plan. You better have a plan, story boy. I have a plan. Stop it.
All right, look. This is very embarrassing, okay? Nobody wants to see a cow biting a storyteller's nose. Get off of my nose.
Ow. Ow. Stop it. The giant said, all right, what's thing number 3? He said, well, you see that tree way over there? I bet you can't break it. Now, there's a big, huge tree just standing there. And the giant went on over to it, took his great big hand. He didn't even need 2 hands. Swung it at the tree, and he went, yeah! Hit the tree, and the tree exploded into a million pieces. When all the dust settled and everything cleared, the giant smiled. He said, oh, boy, only 1 more thing, and then I'm eating the cow. Now, as we all know, what the giant couldn't do was whistle. And so Joe looked up at him. He said, Mr. Giant, I bet you can't whistle. The giant said, I could do that. I could do that. Ready? Is that right? No. Okay, I got it. No, that's not it. Wait, I got a hum. He said, no, that's a hum, Mr. Giant. I said, ah. He said, no, that's a yell, Mr. Giant. I said, cock-a-doodle-doo. No, man, that's a rooster. He said, yodeling, hee-hoo. No, man, that's a yodel. He said, I'll give you one more chance. The giant put his lips together. Giant went. The giant said, oh, fiddlesticks, I can't whistle. Just like he promised Joe, he took the bell, he brought the bell back to town, and Bessie the cow was safe. Hooray! You kissed the cow again. Stop that. Well, he put the bell back, and he was just about ready to leave town, but Joe called him. He said, Mr. Giant, pick me up. The giant picked him up. He said, what can I do for you? He said, well, all you got to do to whistle, Mr. Giant, is get your lips together like a circle, get them wet, and blow some air through them. So the giant got his lips wet, made them like a circle, blew some air, and the giant went. He said, whoa, I can whistle. He said, thanks, buddy. And he put Joe back down, and he left town forever. Well, no one in that town ever saw that giant again. But you know what? If you go to that town this very day and you go to the top of the hill and you listen really, really hard, you can hear something whistling. And I'm pretty sure that something is a giant. And that is the end. Thank you. Now, our next story is a story about a king and some frogs. Now, I like this story for two reasons. The first reason why I like this story is it's a story about kindness. And kindness is a thing that we need a lot more of in this world today. We really do. We need a lot more kindness. And so this story is about kindness. And the other thing I like about this story is it's a story that you all get to help me out with, okay? From wherever you are, you can, when you're watching, at wherever you're watching from, rather, you can help me out with this story, okay? Now, there are 3 sounds I need to help me make in this story, okay? The first sound is going to be the sound of the frogs. Now, listen to it first, and then you can do it with me, okay? Story, it's going to go like this. Ribbit, 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 ribbit. All right, very good. Now, let's all do it together. Are you ready? We're all going to do it together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Ribbit, 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 ribbit. Excellent. Now, the next sound you can make with me when I do the sound is the sound the king makes when he's angry. Now, when the king's angry, he does one very specific sound. Here's what he does. You cross your arms like this. You look angry like this. And the king is going to say, harumph. Okay, that's a sound you can make. When we get angry like the king's going to say, harumph. Very good. Now, the last sound that you could help me make in this story is the sound of the mosquitoes. Now, mosquitoes are going to go like this. You can put your finger up like that, and it's going to go like this. Excellent. You're ready for the story called The King and the Frogs, a story about kindness from France. And here it comes. Once upon a time, there was a king, a very handsome king. And the king loved to do many things. The king loved to read his book. The king loved to eat his ice cream. The king loved to take long, luxurious naps. But there was a problem, you see. For in the palace walls, there was a pond. And in that pond, there were frogs. And every day, here we go, friends, the frogs would go, ribbit, 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 ribbit. When the king tried to read his book, when the king tried to eat his ice cream, when the king tried to take his nap, the frogs would go, ribbit, 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 ribbit. And the king would get very angry. The king would cross his arms, and the king would say, harumph. Well, the king got very angry one day, and the king said, what am I going to do? And the queen, who was very smart, she said, husband, why don't you go and ask those frogs kindly and politely if they will be quiet? And the king said, no, those frogs need to know that I mean business. And so he called for his servant. He said, you go and tell those frogs to be quiet. And the servant said, yes, your majesty. And the servant went down to the pond, and he saw the frogs, and he said, frogs, we are telling you from the king, you need to be quiet. Now, frogs didn't like to be told what to do, especially not from a king's servant. And so the frogs went, ribbit, 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 ribbit. And the servant went to the king. He said, king, the frogs will not be quiet. And the king crossed his arms, and the king said, harumph. And the king said, what am I going to do? And the queen said, husband, why don't you go and ask those frogs kindly and politely if they will be quiet? And the king said, no, those frogs need to know that I mean business. And so he called for his prime minister. He said, you go and order those frogs to be quiet. And the prime minister said, "Yes, your majesty." And the prime minister went down to the pond, and he said, "Frogs, by order of the king, you will all be quiet." Now, frogs didn't like to take orders, especially not from a king's prime minister. And so the frogs went, "Ribbit, ribbit, 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 ribbit." And the prime minister went back to the king. He said, "King, the frogs will not be quiet." And the king crossed his arms, and the king said, "Harumph!" The king said, "What am I going to do?" And the queen said, "Husband, why don't you go and ask those frogs kindly and politely if they will be quiet?" And the king said, "No, those frogs need to know that I mean business." And so he called for his guard. He said, "You go and demand that those frogs be quiet." And the guard said, "No problem, king. I will make sure the frogs are quiet." As the guard went down to the pond, when he got there, he said, "Frogs, we are demanding that you be quiet, or there will be lots of trouble." Now, the frogs didn't like to take demands, especially not from a king's guard. And so the frogs went, "Ribbit, ribbit, 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 ribbit." And the guard went to the king. He said, "King, the frogs will not be quiet." And the king crossed his arms, and the king said, "Harumph!" The king said, "What am I going to do?" And the queen said, "Husband." He said, "No, those frogs are driving me crazy. I know what we're going to do. We are going to get rid of those frogs." And so he called for his servants. He gave them bags and boxes. He said, "You go and take those frogs and take them out of my kingdom." And the servants agreed. And so they went down to the pond with bags and boxes, and they saw the frogs. And before the frogs go ribbit, 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 they grabbed the frogs, put them in bags, and put them in boxes, and took them out of the kingdom. They took them out beyond the palace walls, over the hills, into the valley, down to where there was a new pond for them to live. And they went back to the king, and they said, "King, it is done. The frogs are gone." And for the first time in a long time, the king didn't say harumph. The king smiled. And that next day, it was perfect. When the king tried to read his book, there wasn't a sound. When he tried to eat his ice cream, there wasn't a peep. And when he tried to take his nap, it was perfectly quiet. And all was well. But late that night, as the king slept, he heard a very strange noise. Now, friends, we're going to do the mosquitoes, okay? At first, the sound was very low. Let's do it very low. Then the sound got a little bit louder. Then the sound got really loud. Let's do it really loud. And into the kingdom there came mosquitoes, lots and lots of mosquitoes. They came from everywhere. They came into the doors. They came in the windows. They came down the chimney. And the mosquitoes did what mosquitoes like to do. They like to bite. And they bit everyone, even the king. One mosquito bit the king in the nose. Ow! One mosquito got him on the chin. Ooh! One mosquito got him on the belly. Ow! And one mosquito even got him right on his backside. Whoa! Ow! And the mosquitoes are swarming. The king tried to swat at them and swipe at them. And he said, "What's going on? Why are there these mosquitoes?" Well, you know why? It was because of the frogs. You see, frogs like to eat bugs. And the bugs they love to eat are mosquitoes. And with no frogs there was no one there to eat the mosquitoes. And the mosquitoes are free to fly as they please. Well, the servant went over to the king. He said, "King, I think we need to bring the frogs back." And the king crossed his arms, and the king said, "Harumph!" And so the next day, the servants went down to the pond, got the frogs, and brought them back to the pond in the palace. And no sooner they were back, they started to eat the mosquitoes. Well, now the mosquitoes are gone, but the frogs were back. And the king said, "What am I going to do?" And the queen said, "Husband, why don't you go and ask those frogs kindly and politely if they will be quiet?" And the king said, "Hey, that's a great idea. Why didn't you think of that sooner?" And the queen rolled her eyes, and the queen said, "Oh, brother." And the king went down to the pond, the king himself. And he saw the frogs, and he said, "Frogs, would you please just be a little bit quieter, please?" And because he wasn't demanding the frogs do something, because he wasn't ordering the frogs to do something, because he wasn't telling the frogs to do something, because he was asking kindly and politely, the frogs agreed. And from that day on, the frogs still did go ribbit, 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 but they did it nice and quiet. Ribbit, 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 ribbit. And the king could read his book, and the king could eat his ice cream, and the king could take his nap, and the king was happy. And as we all know, when the king is happy, everyone lives happily ever after. And that is the end. All right. Now I have one more story for you on this fine and wonderful day. And I'm going to tell you a story about a very special friendship. This is a story called The Sheepish Wolf, and I'll tell it to you. Now, this is my wolf. His name is Lester. Hello, everybody. How you doing? How you doing? Hello, 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 hello. Now, this is a story that I wrote just for all of you, and here it comes. Yep. Once upon a time, there was a wolf named Lester, and Lester wanted to catch a sheep because Lester wanted to eat a sheep because wolves eat sheep. We do. They do. And he read in his book of how to catch a sheep. It said the first thing you need to do is to make a sheepskin so you will look like a sheep. Then you need to work on sounding like a sheep. Then you need to start acting like a sheep. Then you stay in the meadow. And when the sheep get closer, you catch a sheep, and then you eat a sheep. So Lester got himself ready. He made himself a sheepskin so he would look like a sheep. Does he look like a sheep? A little bit, right? Yep. And then he worked on sounding like a sheep. Ready? Yep. Blah. No, it's ba. Wah. Nope. Pat. Nope. Ga. Nope. It's ba. Blah. Nope. Ma. Nope. Burp. No burping. There's no burping. It's ba. Wah. No. Pat. No. It's ba. Ba. Oh, there it is. Ba. 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 And then he worked on acting like a sheep. He skipped through the meadow. Skip, 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 skip. He rolled in the grass, rolly, 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 rolly. He lay out in the sun, and he ate the pink flowers. Nem, 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 nem. Well, he practiced every day, and he started to have fun. And after a while, Lester had so much fun that Lester didn't want to catch a sheep. Lester didn't want to eat a sheep. Lester wanted to be a sheep. Mm-hmm. And so he spent his days being a sheep. Bah, 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 bah. Well, one day, a sheep named Sherman, hey there, came out to eat some grass. And he looked across the meadow and he saw Lester. And Sherman said, "That's a funny looking sheep." And he went over to him. He said, "Hey, how you doing? My name is Sherman." He said, "Oh, hi, I'm Lester." He said, "Oh, no, you're a wolf." Ah! I said, wait. He said, "I don't want to eat you." So you don't? He said, "No, man, I don't want to eat a sheep. I want to be a sheep." I said, "You do?" "Yeah, being a sheep is really cool. I want to be a sheep." And Sherman thought that was pretty neat. So they spent their day playing together. They skipped through the meadow. Skip, 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 skip. They rolled in the grass. Rolly, 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 rolly. Oof! Ow. They lay out in the sun, and they ate the pink flowers. Nim, 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 nim. 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 What? There are no flowers up there. That's not flowers. That's my hair. What? That's my hair. Nem, 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 nem. Stop it. Okay. Well, they had a lot of fun together. And at the end of the day, Sherman said, "You know what? I'd love for you to meet my mom and dad." And Lester said, "That would be great." And so he took him home to meet his mom and dad. When he got home, he said, "Mom, Dad, I made a new friend. His name is Lester, and he is awesome." And they said, "That's so wonderful. We'd love to meet him." He said, "Well, he's right outside." And they went outside, and they saw Lester, and they said, "That's a funny-looking sheep." They said, "Oh, hello, Lester." And Lester said, "Oh, hello." He said, "Oh, no, you're a wolf." They said, "Get out." They said, "You get out of here right now. You get out and don't come back." And Lester left, and Sherman said, "But, Mom," they said, "No, he's a wolf, and wolves eat sheep. You need to stay far away from him. We don't want you to play with that wolf ever again. You cannot be his friend." And Sherman was very sad. And so the next day, Sherman went out to go and eat some grass. He looked across the meadow and he saw Lester. And he wanted to go and play with Lester, but his mom and dad told him not to. And he always listened to his mom and his dad, as you all should as well. Mm-hmm. Well, he was eating the grass when all of a sudden he heard a very strange noise. Now, it could be a wolf because wolves eat sheep, but you know what? So do foxes. And the fox came out and saw Sherman and licked his lips. Because he wanted a nice juicy sheep for his breakfast. And the fox got closer and closer and closer. And Sherman yelled, "Help, help, help." And Lester said, "Hey, That's Sherman! And he ran to go and get him. He ran and ran and ran and ran and ran, and he came to the grass, and the fox saw him, and the fox said, "That's a funny-looking sheep." And Lester gave a great big growl. Rah! And when he did, the fox went, and ran away. And Sherman said, "Hey, thank you very much. You saved me." He said, "No problem, buddy." And Sherman went home to go tell his mom and dad how Lester had saved him. And they said, "You know what? Maybe we've been all wrong about that, Wolf." They said, "Sherman, you could play with Lester." And Sherman was very happy. And he ran to go tell Lester the good news, and Lester was even happier. And they spent their days playing together. They skipped through the meadows. Skip, 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 skip. They rolled in the grass. Rolly, 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 rolly. Poof! Ow. They lay out in the sun, and they ate the pink flowers. Nim, 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 nim. 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 Sorry, boss. And they had lots of fun together. Well, Sherman had lots of friends, but his best friend, his very, very best friend, was Lester, the sheepish wolf. And that is the end. Thank you. Well, thank you very much for coming and hearing my stories today. I was Big Joe, your storyteller. Hope you had a good time. Thank you very much for listening to my tales, and everybody have a wonderful, wonderful time. Thank you.